Hey, True Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. It's January 13th, 2017. 5 years ago today, it was a Friday the 13th. It was January 13th, 2012. And it was the day that the deal for my home closed and I got the keys to the house. And I still remember the day it happened. I thought, oh boy, Friday the 13th, we'll see how this turns out. And when I got the house, I was feeling so fortunate. The way it worked out, the day this house that I now live in went on the market was the exact same day I got this hunch to really go out and buy a house. I had money saved from 2006 to buy a home. I had it saved from the time of 2006 all the way up to the time I bought this home. In 2005, 2006, I worked in the real estate market. I made more money than I deserved, and I saved pretty much all of it to pay for school and what I used to get this house. And the reason I bought it at the end of 2011, when I began the process getting the keys at the beginning of 2012, the reason I bought it then is because interest rates were at rock bottom and so were real estate prices. So it was very optimal. And, you know, I'm going to tell a story about how this house hasn't been very fortunate for me. You could say there's been some bad luck. But at the same time, this home has nearly doubled in value. If I was to sell it, I'd get almost twice what I paid for it for exactly 5 years ago today. And in terms of improvements, I've made the property, the landscaping a little bit nicer. It has a long ways to go. I put on a new roof, added some insulation. So I've made some improvements, some physical improvements. But the home has doubled in value mostly just because real estate's gone up and the area's grown. I live about 12 miles north of Seattle, so not that far out of Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, like so many other areas in this nation, rapidly growing. If you didn't know, Seattle as a city has the second most cranes in it for building new structures. I guess number one is Washington, D.C., which is surprising. Seattle's number two. Seattle's been a city full of cranes since before I moved up here. Going back to 2010, 2009, Seattle started to fill up with cranes. So, anyway, this is a growing area. Where I moved to 5 years ago, I used to drive down a 2 mile street that was mostly just big trees. And in the last 5 years, has that changed? There's been so many companies that have come in and just clear cut trees, even going up into the hillside, built subdivisions overnight, even nice big suburban homes up on the hill where there used to be trees. There's just been so much growth. So there's a lot more people that live out here now than when I first moved out here. The street that I live on, it used to not be that busy. Now it's a pretty busy street. So anyway, when I moved here, I didn't know about numerology or gematria. What I teach on this channel, had no clue. I didn't learn about that until I guess almost 2 years later, the end of 2013. So more than a year and a half later, discovered gematria. But now I just look back. I look at how interesting the date is, Friday the 13th, the 113 sequence. Talk an awful lot about that number 113. What blows my mind, this is a real story. I've never told this before. When I bought this house, I made kind of a wild life decision. And this is the short version of that story. I was dating a woman for about 6 months. Beautiful woman. Her name was India. Had a nice relationship. We had a lot of fun, a lot in common. And it was going well. And I think that relationship would have went somewhere. But what happened at about 6 months in is an ex-girlfriend of mine who I had a nice relationship with in the past. And we had a nice separation as far as breakups go years earlier. She came back into my life. At first, she just acted like she needed a friend. Like she needed a friend. She was going through a rough spot. Her father was very sick and ill, who I had a relationship with when we dated. And so anyway, I just kind of became her friend. And after talking to her for a while, then she opened up to me more about how I had ruined relationships for her. She couldn't find any other men that she was happy with. And then so I felt bad. But then she expressed further that she really wanted another chance at a relationship with me. And I thought, huh, you know, what I knew about this girl, what I had to consider was this girl, beautiful, very sweet, caring. I met her working in a group home with other children, so I knew about her as a person. She had since I had worked with her and dated her in the past, she'd gone back to school, gotten a master's, and was working in therapy for people with drug and alcohol addiction. That's what she was doing when she came back to me with this story to tell me. And, I thought, look at this girl. She's educated, she's beautiful, she's smart, she's caring. But when I just said smart truth seeker, I don't mean to sound like an asshole. She was smart, but there was like a limit on it. And when it came to, for example, Barack Obama, she just thought he was the greatest, nicest man in the world. And many Americans think that. But to me, it just drove me nuts because I tried to tell her about how he lied on the campaign trail, and she thought, oh, no, just, look at the good side of him. And honestly, Truth Seeker, a major part of that part of her attitude just drove me insane. A lot of people would say that that's my problem, and I don't know if I would disagree with them. But anyway, I knew that was part of her. So I was thinking, here I am, I'm growing up, I'm an adult. Here's this woman that's telling me how bad she misses me and how much she'd like another shot at a relationship. Well, I was already in a relationship. I'd been dating this woman for 6 months. What I ended up deciding, Truth Seeker, was to break it off with this woman who I'd been going with for 6 months and try it again, with this girl. I don't want to give away anyone's name, but the same girl who I dated years earlier, who I broke up, who she came back into my life like this, I thought, the way she spilled this all out to me and what's going on with her, maybe I should try this again. Maybe I'm supposed to be with this girl. Plus my mom and my sister already liked her, so there was that. So after we start dating again, all of a sudden she says, hey, I want to move in with you. And this is happening at the end of 2010. Like, this is all going down, I don't know, September, October, somewhere in there. It all happened really fast. She said, I want to move back in with you. And I was thinking, oh, hey, we're just trying to get in a relationship again to see how this goes. And now she already wants to move in. And I thought about it for a second. 1 second, Truth. All right, we're back. Just before I got interrupted, I might have accidentally said the end of 2010. If I said that, I meant 2011. The end of 2011, started dating this ex again. What you should know is the reason I had sympathy from her point of view was because I realized that I had broken up with this girl once upon a time for really no reason. I had a good relationship. It was just selfishness. I just wanted to be with other people, honestly. They say men will be dogs. I've been a dog in the past. But I've never been rude or abusive to women. I've always treated them well. It's just, sometimes I just want to be single and free. And anyway, when she was coming back into my life, I was 28. My mom, she's pressuring me to get married, do the American routine. And I've always known I don't want to be married. I could be with the same woman forever. The way women are, I'll probably eventually have to get married. But anyway, I thought, okay, I'll try this again. Here's a beautiful, sweet girl. She's in a good financial spot right now. I'm in a good financial spot because I've been responsible and saved. She wants to move in together. Maybe instead of renting a place, we'll get a house. My mom had been pressuring me to go out and buy a house too because she knew I had the money saved. So anyway, the day I began to look for a house, which was in November, I don't know the specific date, I can't remember, but it was in November. The date I went to look for a house was the same day this house went on the market, the exact same day, and I found it the next day when I began to look for houses. And lo and behold, this ended up being the house I got, and the reason I got it was because it had a good price. It was a lot cheaper than homes that were not as nice and not as good of an area. So I got a really good deal on this house. And that was the main incentive to buy it. Plus, it wasn't too far from Seattle. She worked in Seattle. That year I wasn't working in Seattle, but historically I had mostly worked there. I might have ended up going back to work in Seattle and teaching the public schools there, but anyway, my life took a different path. If you follow my channel, you know what path that's on. So anyhow, all these things happened so quickly. Got back into a relationship I'd been in the past, started searching for a house, found a house, committed to the buying process, the deal closed January 13th, 2012, a Friday the 13th. And I said, I wonder how this is all going to work out. It just seems so wild. I almost feel like I'm being a fool for doing all of this. And anyway, here it is 5 years later, and life has been very interesting. I found this thing, this gematria, began sharing it with the world. I think I've woken up a lot of people. Along the way, putting out this knowledge, I started to get letters in the mailbox, some threatening, some seemingly trying to clue me in or play with my head. Had a very bizarre thing happen in November of 2014. You never heard that story? There was a weekend where I was driving to Kirkland, Washington, which is next to Bellevue, Washington, where Microsoft is. Driving to a friend's house in Kirkland. On the way there, a black SUV, almost stereotypical like the movies, cut me off. It was a one-lane road each way. I was nearly to my friend's house, pretty much a suburban environment. SUV cuts me off, drives on the other side, which should be for the opposing lane. There was no car coming, so it just drove around, drove up in front of me, and then slammed on the brakes, making me have to hit my brakes. And I didn't know what it was at first. I thought maybe it was some rich teenagers messing with me. Kirkland, there's some money there. And then anyway, the car just stayed there, and I just wanted to drive around it. I wanted to go on with my destination. So no other car was coming. It's not like it's a busy road. So I started to drive around him. I was just going to drive past him and continue on my way. Well, when I did that, the car just drove up ahead, and then stopped again. And I thought, okay, what is this person doing? So waiting there, then start to do the same thing again. Well, then it just drove on. And what was funny is it drove on, and what it did is it drove to my friend's house that I was going to. And for a second I thought, oh, maybe my friend's messing with me. But I don't know this vehicle. This isn't their vehicle. Well, that car just sat in front of their house idling. And instead of getting out of my vehicle, because I didn't know what was going on, I didn't know how this person knew to mess with me or to drive to where I was going to, I called that person up and I said, hey man, there's something really weird going on. I said, do you know a person that drives a black SUV? And he said, no, not exactly. He said, what's going on? I said, well, they're parked in front of your house right now with their car idling. And I said, they were just messing with me in the street. And now somehow they knew to drive to your house ahead of me. And he said, well, you want me to come out there? And I said, no, don't come out there. So I just went inside. I walked up there to his house to see what this vehicle, if people were going to get out or anything. They didn't get out. I walked up to his house, went up to his door, went inside, hung out for a minute. He asked me if I wanted him to go out there again. I said, no, man, I don't want you to go out there because I don't know what these people are up to. So anyway, when I went back outside and started to walk outside, the vehicle, it just took off as I approached my vehicle. They just took off, like peeled out too when they took off, pedal to the metal. When I got home, my gate, which has now been ran through, if you know my recent story, my house was hit by a car on Christmas Eve, which we're getting to. But that same gate, it's an open gate for an RV. There's an RV pad there because the people who lived here before me were elderly. They had an RV. This area that I moved to, it used to be mostly, it was like the elderly best kept secret just outside of Seattle. But now, as things are growing, more and more young people are moving out here like myself. So anyhow, RV pad, wide open gate. When I got home, somebody had taken the board out and undone the latch and pried the gate all the way open. All the way open. You know, it takes some work to open up the gate. You got to go, it's a lot easier to do it from behind too. You have to reach over and do everything from the top. So anyway, somebody had done this. Somebody had opened my gate wide, meanwhile, while I was getting run off the road in Kirkland. And not only that, they plugged in a microwave on the side plug-in of the house, and they left 39 seconds on the timer. And I was actually a little bit freaked out. I was like, is this a bomb? Why is there a microwave plugged into the side of my house? And in my own recent life, what I had done just very recent all that happening, was I had made the videos exposing the police corruption, participating in false flags, shooting propaganda, political propaganda, such as the shooting that had just happened in my own backyard at the Marysville Pilchuck High School in October of 2014. And I'd been ranting against the police, so I didn't exactly feel like calling the police to help me in my situation was appropriate. For all I know, it was the police messing with me. After all, who knows how to intercept and know where people are going? You know? All I can assume that happened to me that night is whoever ran me off the road and knew where I was going was reading my text messages and was able to look up who that person was and what their address was. I mean, how else do you beat somebody to their own destination to mess with them? And then when you get home, your gate's pried open and somebody plugged a microwave into the side of your house. Old, nasty microwave. So anyway, what I did is I called my friend, different friend, who lives close to my house, about a mile from me. It was probably 11 p.m. And I knew that he had to work the next day. He's a mailman. He got up, he answered my phone. I needed him to pick up. I had to call him a few times. He picked up the phone. And I said, "Here, man, I hate to be calling you. I know you're sleeping right now, but look, I got this weird situation going on. I don't know if somebody messed with my house, so hang on the phone. I'm going to walk around the outside of my house to see if it looks like anybody's gotten inside or if anybody's around here." And I said, the other thing is there's a microwave plugged in with a timer. And he's like, "Oh, man, that could be a bomb." He said he thought the same thing as me. I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know if somebody's trying to mess with me or what." So while I was on the phone, I walked around the outside of the house. I told him I was going to go inside. I checked out the inside. Everything seemed to be cool. I couldn't tell that anything was messed with on the outside or inside of the house, minus this microwave and the gate being open. And he told me not to open the microwave, but I just told him, "Stay on the phone. I'm going to open it. I think somebody's just trying to mess with me." And I opened the microwave, and there was nothing in there, and nothing happened. I think first I unplugged it. That's what I did. I unplugged it, and then I opened it. So nothing happened other than that scare. Well, the next weekend, exactly 7 days later, my home ripped off, broken into in the middle of the night, pretty much everything of value stolen. I lost a ton in the course of one evening. I should have had way better security. My security was nothing flashy on the outside. Nobody knew that there'd be anything in that house. So anyway, that happened. The home got ripped off. Out of all the places I've ever lived in my life, not with my parents, when I grew up, where I grew up in Portland, I used to live in one of the worst places to live in Portland, Oregon. And there's worse places than Portland, but I grew up in a pretty poor neighborhood in Portland, Oregon. Our home was burglarized multiple times. You know, you live in poor places, your home gets ripped off. But you usually don't lose much because you don't have anything worth stealing. So anyway, been through home burglaries as a child, but out of all the places I've ever lived, I've never had my place burglarized before. I used to live downtown Seattle in a place with an exterior door that would have been so easy to bust through, but nobody ever messed with us there. You know, I would have thought that where I lived in Seattle all those years, and there I had too much in my place at Seattle, but no one knew I had anything. And it never got ripped off. But this place I moved to, Bothell, Washington, where I live, this home, you know, I never thought this would be the place where I get ripped off. And honestly, if I hadn't been doing what I've been doing, I don't think I would have ever gotten ripped off. You know, I think because of what I've been exposing, I think I brought an attention, and the attention comes with consequences. So anyway, that happened. And then this Christmas Eve, 2016, December 24th, my neighbor, supposedly under the influence of alcohol, drove through my gate, through my fence, and into the side of my house, knocking the wall off 2 foundations. When I just got interrupted a second ago with a phone call, that was my insurance company, again, telling me now what they need me to go do, the next hoop to jump through to try and get more money for the funding of the project. Right now, my insurance is trying to pay about, or it's not my insurance, it's their insurance, the people who hit me, but their insurance is trying to pay about 1/3 of what it's going to cost to fix based on the multiple bids I've received. You know? And this is typical with insurance. They don't want to pay out. They want to collect money. They don't want to pay out. They want to rip people off. You know, I mean, look at my situation. It's Christmas Eve. My holiday got all messed up. I had to drive back to my house in the middle of the night to secure the premises, as the police said. I've been dealing with nothing but phone calls and appointments and bids and quotes and jump through this hoop and now send us this for weeks now. You know, it's just a tiresome process, and all the meanwhile, they don't even want to give you enough money so that you can repair the damage. So the side of my house still patched up, you know, how it's been since the holes were put there. But what's funny is that story, it involves one of my neighbors, just like the burglary of my home involves one of my neighbors. The person who burglarized my home. It's very clear who one of the people is. It's the person who lives across the street from me. The person who, when I confronted, the first thing they did was said that they were friends with the police. And the police have not tried to help me, you know, one bit in the burglary of my house. Even laughing at me, mocking me along the process of trying to get them to do anything. But anyway, neighbor burglarizes the house. Another neighbor runs into the house and crashes into it on Christmas Eve. And what's so amazing is when I moved into this house, those 2 homes were both vacant. There were 3 homes on this block that were up for sale. Those 2 were vacant. The people selling this house still lived here. They moved out after they sold me the house. But it's just so interesting to think that the 2 homes that were also vacant, people have moved into and caused problems in my life. And what's funny about both of those homes is they were foreclosures, and they were for sale for a long period of time, and then they sold right at the exact same moment. So anyway, here's what I think about Truth Seeker. This home closed on Friday the 13th. I've had mostly bad luck with the house, but like all things, there's good and bad. When I think about the 113 date that I got this house, January 13th, how that word equals dishonest. Dishonest has a gematria of 113. I wonder if I made the wrong decision in life, you know, trying to... I should have made the point already, if it's not clear. The woman who I moved into this house with, she doesn't live here anymore. She hasn't lived here. It only worked out for not even a full year. You know? We just both realized we were different now. We were older. She wanted to just be more in that mindset of, you know, like focus on the positive. She didn't like listening to me talk about the things wrong in the world. So anyway, the relationship didn't work out. But I ended up staying in the house because I bought the house, which she was cool with. I mean, she didn't have to pay anything for the house. She got a place to live in. She got to live with me and be back in the relationship she thought she wanted to be in. So anyway, it wasn't anything hard to separate over the house. But, you know what? Truth Seeker. That is true. When we separated, everything was cool. Everything was cool. Now I'm remembering something. I'd forgotten part of this story, just all that I've been through. You know what happened just before I got ran off the road by that car? My ex-girlfriend. My ex-girlfriend, out of nowhere, and I don't even know where this came from to this day, but out of nowhere, she started reaching out to me. This was in about October of 2014, so almost 2 years since we'd broken up again, and we hadn't really been in communication. She reached out to me, and she felt that I owed her something for her having helped pay the payments when she first moved in the house. When she first lived here, she gave me like $300 a month to help pay for the payment. And she was saying without that, like maybe I wouldn't have got the house, and she felt that I owed her some money. And she'd never been like this before. She'd never said I owed her anything, and everything was cool and we separated because I'd paid pretty much all the bills. So anyway, all of a sudden she just wanted this money out of nowhere. And I said, well, how much money do you want? And she said, $10,000. And I said, well, how do I owe you $10,000? I said, even in the time you were here, the amount you probably paid into the house was like, I don't know, not even $3,000. So anyway, I just said, you know what? If you really want this money back that you paid when you lived here, I'll give it back to you. So I just given her back $3,000, which wasn't a big deal at the time. And I didn't need to do it, but I just didn't want her to be upset. I mean, if she just felt like that all of a sudden, I was like, whatever. So that happened. And then you know what happened? Okay, now it's all coming back how it all got set up. Also in October, just right after that happened, then it started to dump buckets here. Just like obscene rain. And my roof started to leak. When I bought this home, the thing that was most suspect about the house was the roof to me. The roof looked like it wasn't in the best shape, but the man who did the inspection, he said it had at least 10 years left on it. I said, really? I thought maybe 5, but he said, oh no, you got at least 10 years. Well, October 2014, it began to leak, and it began to leak just powerfully at once. It surprised me how bad the leak was. Seemingly never noticed it before. Then all of a sudden, it was leaking so bad, it was going into the wall and pouring out of my front door. So anyway, had to tarp up the roof. And my neighbor across the street, who ended up burglarizing my house about a month later, I went to him and I said, hey, Paul, you've said all this time that you're a roofer. I said, I got a leak on the roof. I've been thinking about replacing the roof. I said, if you're still doing the roofing thing, if that's still your business. And the time he lived across the street, he told me he worked for a roofing company. So anyway, he said, oh yeah, I'm still working for the roofing company. And went over, made a deal to get the roof repaired. Turned out that my neighbor, he didn't work for any company. He was unemployed, which is actually what it looked like because I never saw him leave the house. But he told me he'd always said he had this job with the roofing company. So anyway, what he did was he went out and got a bid with a company to replace my roof and did a finder's fee. And he got paid a $1,500 commission for setting up the deal. So essentially costing me an extra $1,500 if I just would have went out and hired a roofing company myself. So anyway, when he found out that I could pay cash for it, he got all excited. And he's like, ooh, there's cash in your house? He's like, wow, people with cash, they always get burglarized. I would never keep any cash in my house. And I said, well, look, I never tell anybody, and it's not that much. I said I have enough for a rainy day like this in case I ever need a chunk of cash in a pinch. And he's like, oh, okay, I see. So anyway, this guy rips off my house because he knows there's cash in it. First chance he got, the first night I left my house, and I was only gone for 5.5 hours. I was gone from 1:30 to 7 in the morning. When I came back, my house was a tornado. Everything was tore up. Everything of value was gone. Every corner had been torn through. Everything hidden in the house found. And my neighbor out of town, who never went anywhere. I'd never seen him out of town a single day since he moved there. Out of town when I got back. His vehicle wasn't there. My house was ripped off. I was thinking, who would have known to do this? Then I found out he didn't even work for a roofing company. You know what I mean? So when I went to the police with this and just told them everything, they said that they would help me out. And yeah, all this looked pretty suspect. Well, they didn't lift a finger. They didn't try to help me out at all. And next thing I knew, the police were knocking at my door to let me know my neighbor had filed a restraining order against me. Then my neighbor began to harass me almost every day. Went out and bought the exact same vehicle as me. Had to deal with things such as being flipped off by him as he drove by in the same vehicle as me that he bought with the money from the burglary when he already had a vehicle. So anyway, the police didn't care about any of that. They just told me to not interact with him. Here I am across the street from a guy who rips off my house. The police don't care at all. He has a restraining order, which a judge upholds, unbelievably. I couldn't even believe that. Go to court and tell him what's going on, and the judge decides to uphold it. So anyway, after months of harassment, one day I tell him to F off and leave me alone, trying to mess with me in the front of my house. I was weeding my yard to start spring, March 7th, 2015. He comes out of his house, blabbing to me, trying to get my attention. I just told him to F off and go back in his house. He says he had his phone recording and caught it, and he was going to call the police. And I said, go ahead, show him what an instigator you are. Well, police showed up in packs. I was arrested. I told him honestly what happened. I didn't think I'd get in any trouble for it. I said, look, he's been harassing me. I said, I've called and left messages. Nobody even gets back to me. I said, I'm getting harassed by my neighbor who burglarized my house. I was told you guys would help me out, but nobody ever did anything. There was no follow-up at all. Nothing. So I said, look, he's been harassing me. What am I supposed to do? I told him to F off and go back in his house. They said, oh, so you talked to him? You're under arrest. I'd never been arrested in my life. So that also came out of this house. Getting burglarized, getting harassed by the neighbor who burglarized you, then getting jailed because of the harassment, because of the day you finally responded. I mean, you just start to look at this stuff. It's like, what kind of nation do we live in? All these rules that we have to put up with, this authority, we have to pay for this insurance, and then it's mandatory, and then the day you need it, they don't even want to help you. After I got my house burglarized, what was the worst part of the whole process was trying to recover anything through my insurance. They treated it like I burglarized my own house, made me fill out all these forms, had to talk to people, had to go to a law firm and be interviewed. Man, I had never made an insurance claim in my entire life. First insurance claim, I got treated like I had burglarized my own house. As if I would do that. I mean, it screwed me up so bad what happened. Destroyed the business I had going, everything. And the whole story began on a Friday the 13th. Or, in a way, really the story, I guess, didn't begin Friday the 13th. It began late in 2011. A woman from the past coming in and introducing an idea that seemed out of this world. And to this day, I don't know why I did it. You want to know something else that's funny? And I got it. I deserved it when I got it. After it didn't work out with the woman who wanted to get back together, after that didn't work out, I tried to call back India, who had been dating before, and she gave me the which was the right thing to do on her part, I think. But anyway, since then, I've met another beautiful woman who's come into my life, and she's an angel. There's a lot of angels out there. And, this wacky long story, I don't even know how long it is now, but here's some advice I have for the men, especially men that are younger. It's easy to be a dog in this world and chase women and be selfish. And when I look back and think about my behavior when I was younger, and I wasn't a total pig, and, I never lied to women to get anywhere. I hate men that lie to women to impress them and women fall for it. I've never been that guy. But, I've broken too many hearts. I know that, truth seeker. And that's the point I want to make. When you're in relationships, when there's someone who loves you, who cares about you, and you break it off with them just because you want to go be a dog, I mean, you really are, you're bringing like a negative void into the world. And I was too young and stupid to see it then, as so many men are. It's just, you look back and you think, I wish I didn't do that. And if there's a day where you ever have to answer for the wrong things you did in this world, I mean, I would say the wrongest things I've ever done are breaking women's hearts needlessly, just because I wanted to go explore some more. So anyhow, Friday the 13th story. Oh, I think I didn't make this point. 113, January 13th. The woman who I moved here with, her name gematria is 113. And the woman I was dating at the time, her name gematria, 113. Both of them. And I thought, how weird is that? Why is this world so weird? What is going on here? People say God communicates through numbers, and perhaps when you're aware of this language, you can use it as a tool to see that level of communication. And I still don't understand the full lesson, you know? I know that honestly, when I got back into that relationship, I thought I was doing the right thing for her, you know? And I guess with India, the girl who I broke up with, I knew that she was a little bit younger than me, not a lot, but she was just so young and beautiful, and you know, guys are going to be flocking to her also. And you know, the woman who came back into my life, you know, now that I think about it, she's only 28, we're the same age. She was a few months older than me. I don't know. She just said that I was the one for her. But then we found out that that wasn't true. So if somebody tells you that they're the one, you know, they might not even know what they're talking about. I guess that's another thing to think about. Love, relationships, it's just so dicey. Think about what you're doing for somebody else's heart, though, you know. There's a lot of people in this world, men and women, who are jaded because somebody else lied to them, deceived them, ripped them off. I haven't done that, but I've gotten out of relationships just because I wanted to be free again when really there was no valid reason to do that. I don't know. There's probably somebody listening and saying, yeah, you have every right to do that. It's your life. But it's just, I don't know, you guys. It's just so hard, relationships, you know? It's because culturally we're not all on the same page, you know? Everyone's getting that programming from a young age, especially women. They're going to grow up and meet Prince Charming and be married happily ever after and have babies, and there'll never be a problem. And a lot of women aren't princesses. There's just so many things to it. So let me show you something else, just real quick. The latest disaster in my life. At this house, the house that I got on Friday the 13th, Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2016, 2000 hours military time, that's 8 p.m. I was literally coming out of a church for the first time being in a church in years. I was at a service from 7 to 8 p.m. in Portland, Oregon, about 3.5 hours south of where I was. I was supposed to call my dad because he was getting off work around 8, and I was going to meet up with him the next morning, Christmas morning. And when I pulled out my phone to call my dad, I had a bunch of missed calls, and it was the police letting me know that a car had crashed into my house. And they told me they could not keep the premises secure because they were busy on Christmas Eve, and they recommended I come home to make sure that the inside of the house was safe because the building could be entered with the property destruction. The corner of the house was knocked off and the door that was there so you could get right in the house. And they told me that they couldn't keep it safe. They were too busy. So the next day, I was trying to get a copy of the police report, and they said that there wasn't a police report yet. There was just a case number. And I thought that was, I guess it was Christmas Eve, Christmas. But look at this. I tell this final part of the story because honestly, I don't know exactly what truly is going on in my life. I don't even know who the people are that really live across the street from me that have caused these problems. Both of these homes were vacant without people living in them for a long time. Then the people who live there now moved in like a week apart from each other, and I don't know. It all happened around the time I started putting out information. So look at this. They made the Christmas report December 26, 2016 at the 33rd minute of the day. The 33rd minute of the day. Here I am exposing how police equals 33, how the police love to create wrongdoing by the numbers, often coding 33 on it. I do find this whole story just so bizarre how my neighbor went flying into my house. But anyway, they sign off on it at the 33rd minute of the day, December 26th, 2016. And here's what you got to know. We need the gematria calculator, December 26th, 2016. 12 plus 26 plus 20 plus 16 is 74. And 74 and 33 are the Masonic pairing again and again. Look at this. 12, 26, 20, 16. Here's the math right here. 74. I live in Bothell, which I always thought was the weirdest name. That was the one thing I hated the most about where I was moving to, just that the name of the town was Bothell, like bought hell. Bothell, 74. When I got arrested because my neighbor was harassing me, when I got back out of jail, my neighbor seemingly had 2 trucks full of goons who I'd never seen before pull up in front of the house and just stand around in front of the house holding guns. Just holding guns outside between his house and my house. He lives right across the street. You know, I hate the police, but I called the police to let them know what was going on. I said, look, I just got out of jail because, you guys arrested me because my neighbor was harassing me. And I said, now my neighbor has had people pull up in front of the house who I've never seen before, as well as the people who live right next to me who first notified me that this was even going on because I wasn't looking out at the front of the house. I said, so we're concerned. The neighbors want to know, I want to know, why are men standing out in front of my house holding guns? And the dispatch person, they put me in contact. They routed me through to the closest officer in my neighborhood, which was the same officer who had just arrested me. And what he responded to was that he was occupied. He would come by in a little bit, but it was America and people could have guns. And there's a shooting range that isn't too far from here. So he's like, they are probably just going to go to the range later. And I said, well, the thing is, I've never seen these people before. They've never been here before. Something suspicious is going on. When the officer finally showed up, which was way later, more than an hour later, he was there in minutes to arrest me. Keep in mind. When he showed up, the people had already gone away. And what he said to me is, what I was doing could be viewed as more harassment of my neighbor and I could be taken back to jail. And I said, are you serious? Here I am calling because there's strangers standing out in front of the house with guns. Doesn't that seem reasonable to be concerned about? He tells me it could be more harassment. Maybe they're just friends of my neighbors that wanted to go to the range who has a restraining order against me. And then he followed up by saying if he was me, he would move out of Bothell. Maybe this isn't the right town for him. For me. And now I just look at this on Christmas Eve. It all just blows my mind. Out of the 50 states, there's only one that sums to 74. It's the 33rd state, Oregon, abbreviated OR. That's my birth state. That's also where I was when this happened. Again, what have I been exposing? What have I been exposing the whole time I've been here? One of the most important institutions, establishments in this nation, and the corruption and the wrongdoing that goes on, the real crime, the real threats, the real terrorists, I've been explaining. They are the police. I recently also had that thing with Montegraph making the video on New Year's Eve about me and a dead squirrel. And he did that the day after a dead squirrel was thrown on my property. Never had a dead animal on my property the whole time I've been here, except for that dead squirrel. One day before he makes a video about me and a dead squirrel. I don't normally like to use the police. They haven't been any friend to me, but I just feel like who else are you supposed to document with? There's no other authority that can even help you out. So anyway, made a little police report about the squirrel. Montegraph, they got to see your nice videos. Montegraph, for all I know, is connected with them. But anyway, the police also told me, so don't even sweat it, Montegraph. The police also told me, there's really not much you can do about this. There's not really a lot here. So it's like, what kind of society do we live in? We pay these taxpayer dollars for people who are supposed to keep us safe, but they don't really do shit for us. You have a neighbor that rips off your house. They don't care. They're not doing shit about it, and you're not allowed to do anything about it either. That's what the police said to me. They said, make sure you don't retaliate against him. See? You can't even do anything back. The authority's not going to help you, but they're going to make sure you don't do anything back. You see? In a better world where there's no police, and for those of you who don't know, the majority of the time the U.S. has existed, there wasn't police, and the country was a lot safer before police because people were able to protect themselves. And it's like my neighbor. Nobody on the block likes that neighbor. If I walked across the street and put that neighbor 6 feet under, everybody would call me a hero. Not a single person likes him. You know what I mean? And I could go across the street and put him 6 feet under. I could have done that in November of 2014. The only reason I don't is because I'm not trying to live my life in a box, you know? If we were allowed to protect ourselves, this world would be a lot safer, because in this world, you can't protect yourself. And in fact, if you try to protect yourself, you might get yourself in more trouble. You see? And look, when you follow the rules, they don't help you. It's like right now, and just other rules. You have to buy insurance. My insurance is not even, or the insurance that they have that should cover it, they're covered for enough. They're just doing all they can to hardly pay out anything, you know, so I can barely fix what's damaged there. It's just a joke. So that's what this lesson has taught me, you know. You're thinking about buying a home, becoming a homeowner. You know, listen to my story. I think if I could have just stayed renting an apartment downtown Seattle where I was before all this came, might be better. When I lived downtown Seattle, I used to walk to everything. I used to walk so many miles. Now I live out in suburbia. I still don't drive a lot, but I have to drive way more than when I drove in the city. Almost never had to drive downtown. So yeah, life is strange, True Seeker, Friday the 13th. Maybe there's something to it. I don't know if I delivered this video as I wanted to, but just wanted to share with you the experience of being a homeowner. Never owned a home before this one. And you know what else is interesting? This home was built in 1960, and I'm only the second owner of the home. The family that had it from 60, they gave it to their children. Their children are who I bought the home from. But one family grew up in that house. Second owner. Friday the 13th, 2012. And if you've ever watched some of my older videos, there's like something supernatural about this house. This house has made me believe way more in the supernatural. There's that word believe, but it really has. And I can say think because the reason it's made me believe more is what I've seen with my own eyes. Weird stuff has happened in this house, and one of those very weird incidents is captured on the video I made in February talking about why Donald Trump would probably be the next president of the United States. February 2016, I said I was brainstorming the reasons for who would be the next president between Trump and Hillary, and as I was doing that, like a light bulb literally went off. Light bulb went off in the room I was in, and I've never seen it do that to this day. But anyway, there's been things like that. There's been a cell phone that somehow flew across a room in the middle of the night and got completely busted, needed to be totally replaced. My girlfriend was here to witness that. It just creeped us out. How did the cell phone go flying across the room and smash in the middle of the night? You know, there was no evidence of anybody in the house. It was just weird. That's, you know, what are these movies with the, you know, the supernatural stuff happening? Between that and the light bulb, I don't know how to make sense of it. Also, maybe about a year ago this time, I saw on the local news for Seattle's news, they said that there was some committee that voted on the most haunted house in the entire world, and it was in Bothell, Washington. And that's where I live. And I thought, whoa, that's weird. Maybe there's something going on in this town of Bothell. Bot hell, they call it, you know? So I think I said the majority of what there is to say. If I had to do it all over again, you know, based on what I know that's come out of this, I would do it all over again the same way, I guess, True Seeker. Because I feel that somehow, in some way, this whole story is what brought this knowledge into my life and has allowed me to share it with others. I'm not sure, had I not gone with the girl and moved into the house, I don't know if it would have all worked out this way. Life's a journey. And this house, it's been the weirdest part of my life. Most certainly. So there it is, Truth Seeker. Until next time.